So today we're gonna talk about Guan Yin because we had a big break. We used to offer Guan Yin in our shop, and then its quality diminished a little, and we were looking for a long time to find a good source for Guan Yin, and finally we did, and I'm very excited about this tea. So you can see this tea here. It's not tightly rolled as many other oolongs are, because the farmer is using like traditional methods. And Guan Yin plays like an important role in tea culture. So this is what we're gonna talk about today. And I'm gonna pass mic to Boyko, and she's gonna tell us more about Guan Yin and its processing practices.
Thank you, Misha. Hi, everyone. So we're having a special tea today to taste and to discuss. In fact, Guan Yin, or the Iron Goddess of Mercy, as this name is translates from Chinese, is a firm favorite among oolong teas, as it belongs to the category of oolong teas. And it is also a representative tea for the southern Fujian oolongs. So this type of oolong teas that are produced in southern Fujian. So as we know, Fujian is like a cradle for oolong, and one of the places that are representative in shaping the oolong tea culture in China. And Fujian particularly has this division of northern and southern part, each of them producing a very specific, very different type of oolong teas. And indeed, Guan Yin is the representative oolong for the southern part of Fujian. So historically speaking, I will just make a brief introduction. For this tea, historically speaking, much like the other types of oolong, Guan Yin has taken its modern days, shape during the Qing dynasty, which is actually the last governing imperial dynasty in China, from like 1600 to until basically the Mao era then came along. So this is when the oolong tea category was shaped, and particularly when Guan Yin's production, growing and production methods, as we know them today, also took shape. Other than that, we can trace the production of in this area back to the Tang dynasty, but as we have mentioned before with other types of teas, when we go back that far in history, usually, regardless of whether we speak about green tea or black tea or dark tea, we usually refer to a specific tea cultivar or a specific place, geographically speaking, rather than referring to the tea types as we know them today. For the simple reason that back then in the Tang and even in the Song and Yuan dynasty, the production and processing of teas were really, really different than what we know and have as tea production and processing technology as of today. So historically speaking, we can trace Guan Yin in terms of specific areas producing tea using specific cultivars back to the Tang dynasty. However, if we refer to the modern days shape and tea type, tea category with its production and processing ways, we go as far back as the Qing dynasty, which is relatively soon back in time. So as we mentioned, Guan Yin belongs to the, sorry, just a second. So Tie Guan Yin belongs to the oolong tea category, and as we have discussed before, this is the category that falls between the unoxidized green tea and the fully oxidized black tea or Hong Cha. And actually, it takes the best of both worlds, because we in oolong tea, well, of course, with some differences as to from which area the oolong comes from and which type of oolong does it belongs to. But nevertheless, speaking generally of oolong tea, it has largely preserved this freshness and the intensity of green tea, as well as this, enchanting fragrance, this really mesmerizing sweetness that Hong Cha or black tea also possess. So, with all those advantages, it is no wonder that Tie Guan Yin has also been named, it has been listed among the top 10 teas of China. And it is also prevalent both in Taiwan and in China. So, although, of course, processing ways may vary, and production also may have its specific features in both areas. Still, we are speaking about the same oolong tea type, namely Tie Guan Yin, both in China and in Taiwan. So while in Taiwan, Tie Guan Yin's production makes for a kind of a darker, more intensely roasted taste of Tie Guan Yin, while in China it tends to be on the lighter side with a more clearly expressed floral taste and aroma. Speaking about the Tie Guan Yin production, regardless of whether we're speaking about, Taiwan or China, we have, an orthodox way of production that involves the usual phases of oolong tea production, starting with picking. For Tie Guan Yin, usually the picking standard can extend to a bud and 3 to even 5 leaves. So larger and more mature leaves are being valued for Tie Guan Yin because they have this more intense, more ripe aroma, and they are able to give out a more intense taste, which are both some features of Tie Guan Yin tea. So larger and more mature leaves are not only being accepted, but also being valued for the production of Tie Guan Yin, and therefore the picking standard extends to a way over than the usual a bud and 2 leaves that are used for other tea types. After the picking, we pass on to the withering stage, where the leaves are withered first outside and then inside for a specific for a specific period of time. And after the withering comes the crucial stage of the shaking process that we sometimes translate as making the green, which is a literal translation from the Mandarin Chinese terms, which is 做青. So this process is largely responsible for the taste and the aroma profile of the Tie Guan Yin and practically every oolong tea to take shape. So during this process, the leaves are repeatedly, gently or more intensely, depending on the desired effect, being tossed in like large circular bamboo trays. And then after this tossing, they are left to rest for a certain period. So alternating this tossing and resting results in a partial activation of the oxidation process within the tea leaf. So during this process, what happens basically on a chemical level is that the polyphenols start to partially oxidize under the action, under the influence of inner enzymes in the present in the tea leaf. And this oxidation can be seen by the rim of the leaf starting to turn red. So this is where the skills of the tea master are actually come into play, and they are very important as to because at this stage it largely depends on the skills of the tea master alone to what degree this oxidation will take place and whether it would be stopped at the right moment, because insufficient oxidation will result in a more grassier, like a more vegetal taste of the tea. It will inhibit the development of this specific floral taste, which is so prized in Guan Yin. And over-oxidation will largely result into what we know as Hong Cha. So it really depends on the tea master to know how intensely to approach this leaf tossing processing step, and to find the right moment to stop it, and then pass on to the next processing stage, which is the firing or killing the green. Again, a literal translation from the Chinese term called shating, where the tea leaves are being pan-fried in batches in order to halt the already started oxidation and preserve the inner content of the leaves. So after this stage comes the rolling part, which kind of finishes what has been started during the making the green phase. So this is where the taste and the aroma, more like the taste profile, is being finalized for the tea. So the tea leaves are rolled, whether by hand or by machines, depending on the specific producer, for a certain period. And this is followed by the roasting, which is more or less the final step, because depending on the tea type, some producers might do initial rolling, and then after the roasting, they will do a re-rolling. They will repeat the phases a couple of times and alternate between rolling and roasting. But largely after the rolling is the final step of the roasting, where the leaves are being roasted and turned into the finished tea product that we already can put into our, teaware and brew to get the tea soup out of it. So, an interesting part regarding the legends around this interesting name, because Guan Yin's name also usually raises questions about how did it happen, why is it called Guan Yin, why is it called Iron Goddess of Mercy, etc. So, of course, there are a number of legends around this. There is one of the more popular legends around this interesting name states that a long time ago there was a farmer who used to take care to tend to a temple dedicated to the Guan Yin goddess, the goddess of mercy. And one day, or let's say one night when he was sleeping, she came to him in his dream and guided him to some cave where she told him that he will find a treasure. So in the daylight, he followed the path that he saw in his dream, and then found the cave. And inside the cave, he found a small tea tree, which he took with him and planted near the temple and started to carefully tend to. And so the tea grew with time. And the tea that the farmer was able to produce from its tea leaves was exceptionally delicious. So he called this tea Guan Yin, and continued to tend to this temple dedicated to the goddess of mercy. And it is also believed that some of the original, the mother trees for the Guan Yin still grow in this temple somewhere in the Ansi region, which is the core production area for Guan Yin. There are also some other, let's say, legends, or more like stories. One of them involves the Emperor Qianlong, who has been served Guan Yin tea for the first time from one of his ministers. And tasting this extraordinary tea, he praised its taste, he praised its beautiful floral aroma. And supposedly he claimed that this tea is black and heavy as iron, but also fragrant and beautiful in shape, just like the goddess of mercy. So it should be called the Iron Goddess of Mercy, or Guan Yin. So, Misha,
Are there any like principal differences between Guan Yin and other types of oolong, or they all like pretty much the same kind of category teas?
Well, we mentioned,
I know that some people, like many sources, they refer to Guan Yin as even like a separate, like kind of tea, like Baozhong, for example.
Like Baozhong, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, I just mentioned about the two crucial phases, processing stages, the two crucial phases of production phases of largely any type of oolong, which would be, the rolling part, and specifically the making the green part, this part where, tea producers alternate the tossing of the leaves with the resting. And speaking precisely about this phase, it is interesting that in different regions of China, although there is this, common name, which is making the green, 做景 in Chinese, different regions have also made up different names for this stage, which actually depend on the intensity of the tea leaves treatment during this stage. So there are regions where the tea leaves are being, tossed much more intensively, which results in a heavier oxidation, and of course a different profile, which is more intense, more sweet, more pronounced. There are other places where the tea leaves are being just very gently, treated, and this also in turn changes the profile, the taste and the aroma profile of the said oolong, which is produced there. There are also different types of rolling, as you know, with Baozhong, which is more or less considered like a different category, although it belongs to the large, oolong tea category. There are also oolongs that are being, wrapped during the rolling phase, which results in a different way of the tea leaf oozing out its juices, and then it is also reflected in the taste afterwards. So when we brew this tea, the taste will be largely different than if the rolling is done in the typical way. So
Can you
while there,
can you
yeah,
elaborate a little bit more on the wrapping? Like, what do you mean by wrap?
yeah. So basically, during the rolling phase, the leaves, so they are not just like a big lump, but they are being wrapped in a like a cotton sheet. So they make like a big ball, which is very tight. And then this ball is like rolled with specific circular motions. But because
Isn't
they
it
are
how like all of the rolled oolongs are
yeah,
made?
it's the whole batch of tea leaves is being, you know, wrapped like this and then being rolled. So this kind of, you know, processing will be reflected later in a different taste profile than if you compare with a like a regularly rolled tea, you will feel a difference. And so basically these two stages, rolling and making the green, are where the usual differences lie according to a specific oolong type and a specific region producing its, you know, native oolong type, let's say. And this is where largely the difference between most of the oolong types comes from.
So, would you say that oolongs, they came from Fujian, like originally? This is the birthplace of oolongs, like as a type of tea?
Yes, correct. This is considered the cradle for oolong tea. And from there, actually, it is believed that oolong found its way to Taiwan because of the proximity. Because of the proximity of the two regions, and then to Guangdong, where this, you know, very peculiar Gongfu tea culture, does, you know, the Guangdong Gongfu tea culture also developed in its own right. However, Fujian is considered to be where it all started for oolong tea.
And do we know if it started from like Yangcha type of oolongs or from like Guan Yin type of oolongs?
Well, it is a bit hard to say, although there are some, you know, written testimonies. I should check because right now they're not in front of my eyes right now to see just exactly to what time we are referring here to. But there is this description made by a certain, you know, how do you say, clerk, let's say at the time, who referred to, who was explaining about, he was elaborating on Guan Yin, and he mentioned that there is this tea produced in Anxi, they call it Ancha, so tea from An, which imitates Yan Cha. So judging by this, we might, you know, conclude that Yan Cha was already existent by the time where Anxi Tea Guan Yin production started to take shape already. So this is the first, you know, testimony that comes to mind when you ask me this question.
And do you know how Tea Guan Yin spread to Taiwan? Like, is there like any history of that? Because right now there is like this big, how do you say, competition between Anxi Tea Guan Yin and Taiwan Tea Guan Yin, because they are, you know, both Tea Guan Yin very different. One is much lightly roasted, one is like more heavily roasted, and so what can we say about this, you know, rivalry?
Yeah, well, in fact, the transition to Taiwan happened again during the Qing dynasty, and it was like just a couple of years before the 1900th year. And there were two brothers by the name of Zhang Nai Miao and Zhang Nai Gan. They were brothers from Anxi who are credited with passing Tie Guan Yin to the Muzha district of Taiwan. So I cannot really say much about that. Usually it's related to trade, but it is considered that it was at this time that Tie Guan Yin found its way to Taiwan and then started to spreading in other neighbor regions, including Guangdong, you know, down below. So this is where actually the producing technology of Guan Yin also started to spread. And of course, because every region has its, you know, customs and peculiarities in producing tea, apparently there were, you know, some local differences that also influenced the production. And they kind of shaped, you know, Guan Yin by area as we know it today, with its differences, as you mentioned, the Taiwanese Guan Yin, which is considered more heavily roasted, compared to the Chinese one, which is on the lighter and more floral side.
Can you confirm, like, this is what I hear from my fellow, you know, like teammates from Western Europe, from Eastern Europe, and
Yeah.
basically they complain that Ansi tea Guan Yin, because in China green tea is by far the most popular tea. So in Ansi, they tend to make tea Guan Yin lighter and lighter and lighter roasted, like much closer to green teas, while in Taiwan they tend to go darker and darker, and they like, yeah. So
well, I guess there is maybe, you know, this there is also marketing in this, because everybody is trying, you know, to maintain a specific identity, you know, which has more or less emerged in time. And probably there is, you know, some effort in maintaining this identity. So when we say today, when we say Chinese Guan Yin, and we tend to associate it with light and floral tea. So I guess that for producers at some point will be probably easier, you know, to identify with this image and claim that they sell more or less the orthodox Guan Yin, the more, you know, authentic kind of tea, which is authentic for this region. Other than that, in fact, there is also a variety, because there are actually a couple of varieties. Just speaking about the Chinese, the Ansi version of Guan Yin, which is produced in China. So we tend to summarize it under the lighter, more floral kind of profile. But the truth is that there are several types of Guan Yin being produced in Ansi and the area. And they have also this division by aroma profile. And by aroma profile, Guan Yin can be divided into light aroma profile and intense aroma profile, which in Chinese is said nong xiang. Nong would mean something which is very deep, very intense, very concentrated. So it is not only, you know, the lighter and the more floral profile that we are aware of that is typical for the Chinese Guan Yin. It exists also in other versions, which can be pretty intense, but probably are, as I said, less popular, as they, you know, kind of differ from the orthodox image of what the Chinese Guan Yin is considered to be, and probably receive less recognition.
do you know what place Guan Yin now like takes in the world of Chinese oolongs? You know, like among Chinese, the popularity.
Actually, Guan Yin used to be probably the most popular type of Chinese oolong, and as I said, no wonder it has been included in the list. As far as I know, it's the only oolong that is included in the top 10 Chinese teas list. I might be wrong here. However, we need to double check on this, but still it was really quite popular. In the last decade, it has been kind of started to lose popularity on behalf of the Dancong oolong, which is the Guangdong oolong tea type, and of course the Yancha, which is more or less it has its firm place among tea lovers and especially oolong lovers in China. So right now it is not probably the most popular type of oolong, However, there is, there is some cyclic, there is a cycle in this kind of, popularity movement between tea types. So we can expect that it might make its return. By the way, 3 years ago, Guan Yin has also been, Ansi Guan Yin has received the the term got out of my mind. So it is a protection of origin, a geographical protection of origin status. So having this in mind, we might expect that there are, some state measures, like on the state level, measures are being taken for ensuring that the Ansi Guan Yin culture and legacy will be taken care of. So I guess that we might expect a rise in popularity in the upcoming years.
By the way, I just wanted to ask you, I never thought about it before, but it just came to my mind. What is the place of Taiwanese oolongs in China, in the mainland China? Are they like, do people in mainland China, do they buy Taiwanese oolongs? Is it rising in popularity, or is there like a rivalry?
Yeah, well, indeed, they do buy Taiwanese tea. And of course, there are types of Taiwanese tea which is also very priced in the mainland. Okay, so I cannot, claim to have this, deep outlook into as to the Chinese relation to Taiwanese tea, but my personal impressions are that some Taiwanese tea, there are some types of Taiwanese tea which is very priced in the mainland, and there is also this, local factor, because while I was in Guangdong, for example, Dansong was all the rage. So when you speak about oolong there, you are speaking by default about the locally produced oolong. And because the market is so intensive, there are lots of producers, the competition is fierce, and there is not really much place left, for outsiders, so to say, for, other types of oolongs. Yes, of course, everybody knows about them. There are probably people who enjoy them and who drink them, but because when you're in the heart, of Dansong production, there is not really much place left for other types of oolong. So there is this local factor that also plays a big role in as to what kind of teas are popular within a given area. So no doubt it will be the locally produced tea that takes the big piece of the pie, and then then the other, can queue up and try to have their share.
Gotcha. So as always, I didn't have patience to wait with my first brew, till the session is over, and I started brewing the tea. So the tea Guan Yin that we have, I would say it's in the middle between, somewhere in the middle between the typical Ansi tea Guan Yin and typical Taiwanese tea Guan Yin, as it's light roast. However, it has like the nutty, the floral notes are not prevailing in this tea. Oh. It has creaminess and nutty notes that usually belong to green teas, which is kind of surprising. And then on the background comes the floral notes. So you need to get like 1 or 2 steepings first, and then the floral notes of this tea, like reveal themselves like fully.
Right.
And on the taste, it's you can see the color. I don't know, it's like if the sun is hitting it right. It has this creaminess that if you tried our Alishan Jinsuan oolong, the milk oolong, then it will remind you, this creamy notes. And then, there is like this pleasant, like floral notes of tea Guan Yin that it's famous for. So I think it's a very well balanced in that sense, you know. And, uh, by getting this tea in our shop, I think we're covering both, you know, the Taiwanese and the Ansi aspects of this tea.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Also, something that we have been discussing, that actually, from what I researched, it's rolling. The rolling phase of this tea is closer to the traditional rolling type of Guan Yin. So this is how it used to be made before, which it is actually a rolling that results in a looser, you know, loose fists rather than, you know, tight balls that we are used to, you know, connecting Guan Yin with.
I would say it's even like between rolled and twisted, you know.
Yeah,
it's
right.
yeah.
So no doubt
And
this traditional processing will also, yeah, sorry, just to finish my sentence, this traditional type of processing, this traditional type of rolling will no doubt influence also the taste and the aroma too.
And what's interesting about, another thing that's interesting about this tea is that the farmer uses not like fully matured leaves, but younger leaves, like smaller leaves. And I think, I'm not, you know, an expert in it, but I think this is what gives this tea the kind of like the tenderness and the freshness, because this is like sipping spring, you know, if you ask me, like, you know,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
not sharp as green teas are, so it's very like smooth and creamy, and at the same time it gives you this feeling of freshness.
Of freshness, yes. Indeed, I also believe that the fact that they use younger and more tender and fresher leaves directly impacts what you mentioned about this freshness and its refreshing nature. Because actually, you know, as you probably know, the most tender, you know, leaves and buds are typically reserved for the green tea production, and this is one of the you know, typical descriptions of a green tea would be as fresh in terms of refreshing, like in terms of taste. And very often when Chinese refer to the, you know, the first green tea for the year, they call it the taste of spring. It is like you actually have the spring in your mouth when you have your first sip of this tea. And the fact that you refer to this, you know, it's much like sipping the spring when you drink this tea. No doubt it is also related to using this young and fresh leaves, which are usually reserved for the green tea, and to which green tea, you know, owes its refreshing nature.
And it also has, like, as I mentioned before, like another aspect that connects it to green tea for me is this nuttiness. This, like, really can feel it in every sip. And it's so unusual for oolong, you know, because you usually don't have this nutty notes.
Right.
Do you know what's responsible for the nutty taste in tea? Like, what elements are responsible for giving this?
Well, should be the amino acids. Again, something to double check. But as this, as you call it, nuttiness, because yeah, in China it is also referred to as douxiang. So this nuttiness, so-called, tends to be more on the sweeter side, and basically every taste component that is on the sweet side in tea is referred to the content of amino acids, for the simple fact that the other, you know, major compound group in tea, which is the polyphenols, is has a very bitter and astringent taste. So in terms of bitterness and astringency, as if we refer to bitterness and astringency as taste components, they are largely due to the polyphenols group, while everything which is on the sweeter, and the refreshing side is due to the content of amino acids in tea.
Okay, sorry guys, my dog is barking sometimes, somebody's around. When neighbors come, he gets very excited, so I apologize for this loud barking in your speakerphones. So yeah, if you have any questions or if you want to discuss something, go ahead. This is the time. Did any of you try Guan Yin? Not necessarily our Guan Yin, but like any of you guys familiar with the Guan Yin tea?
Actually, hi everyone. Kelly here. I have two Guan Yin teas, and one is kind of dark roasted. The other one, I think it's dark roasted. It's probably, I guess, from Taiwan. I don't know. But then this other one is from China. But my question is, and I don't know if the leaves are small or large. This is like the sides of the leaf. I don't know if
this isn't a large. Yeah, this is
large. The large.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
This is the one from China, from Ansi region. But my question was about the red around the leaves. So does that get hidden when the tea is roasted, or do you see it after you start to brew it? The red around the leaves.
So usually you have to brew the tea in order for the tea leaf to take its original color, in order to see this red rim, which is actually the result of this phase of making the green that we have been, discussing earlier. So yes, you need to brew the tea, and once the tea leaves have returned to their original color, you will notice if the tea has been properly processed. You will notice, the green middle part surrounded by this thin red rim.
So that is an indication of quality, like a real good production of the
Correct.
tea?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this means a proper processing, and it means actually a tea master that knows its skills, that knows what he's doing. The goal here is to start the oxidation of the tea leaves. So this red rim actually is the place where the tea leaf has started to oxidize. But to keep it within, to keep it under control so that not the whole tea actually turns red, which will basically turn it into Hongcha or black tea, which means it will be fully oxidized. So this is where we say that this is why Oolong partially keeps, the features of a green tea. So this is the unoxidized part, and partially has the features of the fully oxidized Hongcha, which is this thin red rim, and this is what makes Oolong partially oxidized tea. This is the reason we call it partially oxidized.
Okay.
Tiziana has her hand up. So
yes. Hi. So continuing with what you just explained. So if we don't see that red line when we brew the tea, means that the quality is lower?
Not necessarily. Well, as we mentioned, the degree of oxidation will also vary not only according to the processing as an orthodox processing, but it will also vary according to an area. So as we say, the ANSI process, the ANSI produced tea Guan Yin is lighter. It is lightly oxidized. It might be really lightly oxidized to the degree where you need to search, for these thin red spots within the tea leaves. And of course, for teas that are being more heavily oxidized, more intensely oxidized, just a larger portion of the tea leaf will be red, compared to the lightly oxidized teas. So the degree of oxidation will vary, of course, according to the skills of the tea master, but also according to the geographical area and the local customs of tea Guan Yin production.
And if you don't mind, another question. You go to a store and you find tea Guan Yin, and then you find superior and imperial.
Sorry?
You find like 3 types: Tea Guan Yin, and then Tea Guan Yin superior, and Tea Guan Yin imperial. I would assume that imperial is better than superior. Is no?
Makes sense to me. Well, just for the record, there is no superior or imperial, grading, like official grading of Tea Guan Yin. So this is something that probably the store owner just, made for his own convenience or for marketing purposes. But
for marketing purposes, because no one is checking. There are no like set standards. So any seller can claim that my tea is imperial or my tea is superior, and there is no authority that would come and check and say you cannot call your tea superior or you cannot call your tea, So it's a marketing trick. So we don't go by this standards.
Actually, there are official grading standards for pretty much every type of tea, but we're speaking China here. So regarding other territories, as far as I know, I haven't heard at least for official grading standards outside of China. And so this, superior and imperial grading is strictly an invention of the store owner.
Thank you.
Is there a certain time of the year that the leaves are collected or picked for the good quality?
Yeah. Well, usually, much like other, most of the tea that is being produced in China, the picking starts in spring. For Tea Guan Yin, there might be a later picking simply because, as we mentioned earlier, Tea Guan Yin, for the production of Tea Guan Yin, more mature leaves are also favored because their smell and the taste they generate is more intense. It's stronger, So it takes a bit more time, to leave enough leaves to develop and to become mature, to become big, and wide open, so that they can be collected for Tea Guan Yin's production. But generally, yes, we are also referring to spring as the start of the tea picking, and spring tea normally being considered the best among all teas picked in different seasons.
Thanks. Thank you. So, Misha, the tea that you are featuring, it has all of the qualities that were just discussed.
So as I said, it's not like in your face floral as some expect from Tea Guan Yin. Like Ansi Tea Guan Yin that we had before this tea was very, very green and was very, very floral. Like floral notes were like the most predominant notes. And this pretty much what I didn't like about that tea, that with all these floral notes, it didn't have much complexity. It just, you have this one floral streak going on. With this tea, there are many things that come to play. It's not very traditional that I to what in my mind is a traditional Tea Guan Yin, what I'm used to in Tea Guan Yin. But it has so much going on. It has this creamy side of it. It has this nutty side of it. It has this floral side that comes, to play like a little bit later on. And this combination is what makes it interesting in my mind. So it's they use traditional methods, in producing this Tea Guan Yin. But if you ask me, this is not the most orthodox Tea Guan Yin I ever had. So it's more interesting, and this is what I like about it. And as we try to keep teas, we try to keep our selection small, but we try to keep every tea that would be like somehow different from the rest. So I think this is a good example of such teas.
Thanks.
Nice. How is it developing right now? Which brew are you on?
This is my fourth one, and at this point it's just like stable. It has more the creaminess kind of went away already, but it still has the nutty notes and the floral notes. They come to play like much stronger than before. And in terms of aroma, let me check. Yeah, at this point, it's like more of a floral aroma, coming from the leaves. So
Good. I see you're using a Guan Yin pot
yes,
for the
yes.
brew. Have you
Yeah.
tried brewing it also in a porcelain, Gaiwan, in the porcelain? Yeah,
Oh,
Gaiwan?
yes, I use porcelain, most of the time. But yeah, I also tried brewing it in Juni and in Duani. To me,
How do they compare?
I couldn't tell much difference between brewing it in Juni and Duani. Pretty much the same. In porcelain, definitely gives more like floral notes. They're more apparent,
Right.
than in the clay.
Okay.
Yeah. Also wanted to say a couple of words about another tea that we just acquired, Japanese Oolong. Very unusual tea. So this Japanese Oolong, it goes through most of the processing steps that Chinese Oolongs do, but then at the end, it doesn't get the final roast. So it plays like a huge difference, in taste. It has this once again like the freshness of green tea, and has some of it like astringency and the pleasant bitterness. Definitely something that I wasn't expecting from Oolong, but it's very, very interesting. It's very, very unusual, and I got so addicted to it lately. This is what I drink pretty much every day. I have to make an effort to try something else. And yeah, it's because Japanese, they just started developing oolong teas. So I was looking for such tea for a long time, and when we came across this tea, it's like, this is a winner. We gotta take it. So I'm very excited about this new tea, and I wanted to say something else about it. Just lost my train of thought.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope you get the thought back. Is there any fundamental difference between Dongding and other Taiwanese Tea Guan Yin?
Well, Dongding is a mountain. It's the name of the mountain, and there, you may produce on this mountain, different types of tea, depending on cultivar, and processing methods. But it has like a unique terroir, and they have their like traditional teas. So I don't know, Boyka, do you know if they produce any tea Guan Yin on the Dongding Mountain?
I am not really that familiar with the Taiwanese Dongding tea, so not much I can say here.
I could say that the reason I asked the question is that the dark roast Dongdings generally taste to me indistinguishable from a dark roast Tea Guan Yin. But okay, I thought
for Tea Guan Yin, they usually use like Tea Guan Yin cultivar. There is like a cultivar called like Tea Guan Yin, and for Dongding, from my experience, they usually used a cultivar called Ruanji, Qinshin, or another name of this cultivar. So to me, I've tried the Guan that I've tried from Taiwan and dongdings that I tried from Taiwan, they're very different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dongding usually tastes to me like it has this oatmeal. I call it like oatmeal cookies kind of taste, like this sweetness, very distinct like sweetness. And Tiguanin, I don't know how to explain it, but also like sweet because of the roast, but it's a different type of sweetness that I wouldn't confuse one for another. So we have like different experiences on it. But it's very possible. I don't know. It's very possible that they also make tiguanin, that they produce tiguanin in the Dongding area. So
Yeah. Actually, the dongding that I drink most is is a Guan Yin cultivar anyway.
Oh, I see.
But the thing about dongding that I especially like is that it's very hard to make it bad. You can you can leave the water in, forget about it for 10, 20 minutes, pour it
Yes.
out, put in a new infusion, and you still got good tea.
I think this is a quality of like, I don't know, Boyka, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the more roasted the tea is, the harder it is to overbrew. It's like it's very resilient to
Yes,
overbrewing.
yes, indeed. Well, it results in a very more intense taste profile, but also the degree of roasting makes it, brew enduring, as the Chinese say, nai pao. It's like, if we have to translate it literally, it will be patient for brewings. So yes,
Oh.
more roasted tea can be, brewed longer without having this depleted feeling.
And dongding is also, it can, it comes in different forms. Like some dongdings are much lighter roasted and some are much darker roasted.
Yes.
Like tea Guan Yin. Yeah.
Yeah, like Tiguani. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, I have a nerd point that I think might be interesting geologically. Most likely, or maybe geologists know for sure, there was a river which separated Taiwan from China, and or part of Taiwan from China, and at some point long ago, that river went all the way and then expanded because there's the ocean. So that's why the Anji province and Taiwan are extremely similar in in tea growing. End of nerd point. I hope you did.
Yeah.
Did you think of your did you think of what you were going to talk about before?
You mean similar, like geographically speaking, like they have the same climate, or the...
I don't know that they have the same climate exactly, because an island is always going to be different from another place, but the ground, I can't even say the terroir, but it's the same ground now, just separated by water.
Well, yeah.
Lake says that maybe the soil, because it used to be one type of land, so the soil is kind of similar. Well, I don't know about that. Not a geographist. Don't know much about history of all that. But yeah. So Kelly has her hand up. She wanted to say something.
I just had just a general question. How long should you keep tea around? When does it become like flat? or
It depends on the type of tea, and it depends on the processing. So green teas, they usually recommend it to drink within a year. You know, by the end of the year, they already start losing freshness. But once again, it depends on tea. Like for example, one of our teas, like Snow Dragon, I noticed from my personal experience that it's very resilient to losing taste. You know, it can, for some reason, don't know why, but it doesn't lose freshness. While other teas like Lunjin, for example, it's like by the end of the year, I can tell it's like not the same. It loses some of its notes. And some other teas, well, white teas, you know, they only get, usually for the most part, they only get better uh, with time, because the oxidation never stops in this tea. They didn't go through this shutting state, so they keep on developing, you know, through the years. Same with like pu'er, for example, especially like raw pu'er, and hongcha, like black teas. Um, there is nothing going on there in terms of oxidation, so they can stay alive for like a couple of years for sure. And with oolongs, it's tricky. Like lighter oolongs, you know, sometimes it depends on where you are and what kind of atmosphere is in your area. They can go stale, or they can actually like develop further. Um, I think the more humidity is not good for oolongs. That's why like aged oolongs that produce like in Taiwan and mainland China, they get re-roasted usually like once a year to get rid of the excessive moisture. So except for green teas, I think most teas, you know, they good to stay for like a couple of years, and don't have to worry about it much.
Thanks.
So this is, I already like lost count. At this point, this tea gets just like, it's very mellow, it's very rounded, and it's pretty stable. Like there are no surprises at this point. Doesn't change taste much, but it also like doesn't lose flavor. So this is probably, I don't know, probably my seventh brew. And it's just like very stable, like mellow tea with some nuttiness and some floral notes like combined together. I'm gonna brew another cup. So what are you guys drinking at the moment? What's everyone drinking?
Tea Guan Yin.
Yeah.
The same. Yep.
What kind of tea Guan Yin do you guys having?
Taiwanese.
Yeah, from Taiwan. Roasted, like
Dry roast.
heavily roasted.
Um, I wouldn't call it medium, but medium heavily roasted.
Oh, I see. So Lake is having an early harvest Anji Baicha, I assume. And so this is a green tea that, you know, it's a very delicate tea. So I want to know, Lake, I want to ask Lake if the tea like lost its flavor by this time, because it's like almost, it went through a full cycle. So is it still like has this its freshness? And
Actually, I think he mentions it's an early harvest, so I believe
yeah.
he has a tea from this year.
Oh yeah, like is it
Yeah.
from this year or is it from the last year? From this year, I believe it's still a little bit early for
Well,
Anji to come
he,
out.
I don't
Maybe in
know.
China, but it still has
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
make its
in
way.
China too.
Yeah. And we know how slow the postal services work nowadays. So
Oh yeah, it would be interesting for him to confirm whether it's this year's early harvest or last year's early harvest? Because when I see early harvest, I typically think about this season. So,
like, is it from 2022 or is it from 2023?
we'll give him some time to respond.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
2022.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, then it must be fresh and
Yeah, lucky you.
yes. I see.
Good.
Okay, good. And Tizania, are you enjoying any tea right now? What are you drinking?
Yes, I am drinking the superior.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Does it taste superior?
no, to tell you the truth, no, I tried the imperial and it's even better than this. So looks like the name helps to to describe which one is better. Yeah.
So Kelly is drinking 2021 Guan Yin. So do you feel that, like, that it's missing something, Kelly?
Kind of a little bit flat. I don't know if
A
I
little
should
bit flat.
more tea just to get a little more robustness. But yeah,
that's the thing with if it's lightly roasted teas, like oolongs, they tend to lose its freshness. What about Caitlin?
I'm drinking the water Sprite oolong.
Oh yeah, the one you got from us or from someone
Yes,
else?
yeah. I signed up for the tea club, so this came with that.
How do you like it?
I like it a lot. It's hard for me to like pick up on the tasting notes. I was trying to think about all I can say is kind of reminds me of like a woodsy flavor.
A what
Almost.
flavor?
Like a woodsy, like
Woodsy
almost.
flavor,
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Did you try our stone milk?
Yes,
Another, yeah. So
that
how
one
would
was
you
really good
compare
too.
one to another? Like,
I felt like the stone milk had more of a minerality to it.
which one?
The stone milk.
The stone milk. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I also feel the same.
Yeah, but my favorite from that shipment was I think Secret Forest black tea.
Yes,
That was my
Vietnamese.
favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are now exploring the Vietnamese market of teas, and it's so interesting. They have distinct, like their own teas that, very, very surprising. We just acquired some pu'er from there that also is very different from I'm used to from Yunnan, even though it's like a bigger Yunnan kind of area because this mountain range, it's not just in China, it also extends to neighboring Vietnam, Thailand, and Myanmar, Burma. So it's geographically, you can probably say that it's the same area. Right, Boyka? Can you say that it's like pretty much the same area?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah. But they have like distinctively their own taste. It's like much more mellow and rounded, even though it's a 2022 raw pu'er. But it's very, very mellow. It has like almost no bitterness, just a little bit at the end, later brews comes astringency. So it's very exciting to explore, like unorthodox areas of tea, and like Thailand, Vietnam. Now we're trying to find, some unorthodox Japanese teas. So yeah, next month, we're gonna send some new arrivals with the tea club. It's gonna be exciting, hopefully.
Yeah, in the meantime, you can you can read our new blog post, which is dedicated specifically on Chinese tea types produced in Japan, and we will be following up with other tea types which are also quite interesting, like pu'er, for example, which are being produced in some of China's neighboring countries.
Alrighty, guys, it was pleasure having tea with you all. I hope you liked it, and I hope you enjoy the teas you were drinking. And we'll see you in a month. And thank you so much. See
Thank
you
you.
later.
Thank you.
Ciao. Ciao.
Thank
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.